It's July 8th, 2022. It's Freya Day, supposedly somewhere. It's also July 8th, so it's 7-8, so cosmically it's important. Cosmetically and cosmically, there's an important part of today my son and I will partake in. Someone else in theatrics has a very special opening day. I thought it nice for my son and I to go. Um, whatever. Um, I opened this morning, was speaking to Lewis. He's showing me his community of fish in the fish tank, and I'm like, well, Lewis, you do realize that you are the Aquarius. I was like, you are the original Aquaman in my life. I was like the head of the bullpen, meaning my mother, Linda, because she's a Taurus. I mean, like, this is astrologically pronounced. I can't help it. It's just, I mean, I have a Janvier and an Avril that I arrived to, and I'm the Leo, which means I'm the lion. So, Lewis is informing me of his fish community. Um, I said the females inside of this equestrian whatever are very strong personalities, and they are riling up, and they are actually going after the fantail male guppies, and they're biting their tails, and it's really like very like for me at high amounts of anxiety. I don't like this level of aggression in any situation. So um I'm like, so on better things since your fish, whatever, I was like, is bothering me. I was like, how are the snails doing? The mollusks. I was like, again, they're more my. He's like, well, they're enjoying what the fish are up to. He said, because as they fall, he says they're enveloping with their mollusk the fish, the dead fish, and they're feasting. And I'm like, right. I see that. And this, like, I forget the word for it, but ecosystem, I suppose. And I'm just like, and then he says, but the tigerfish, I mean, not the tigerfish, the catfish, he says are having a problem because their bottom, they like hang out by the rocks. So a mollusk might think they're a dead fish. And so I'm like, well, that does bring new meaning to the word, just keep swimming, as advice to the poor catfish at the bottom of the tank with the snails on predatory whatever, and the fish being as aggressive as I didn't know female fantails are in this new community that the Aquaman downstairs, not the Jason Momoa, no, before him there was, I had my own cosmetic certain, and he looked more like Santa Claus for the larger American public who know what this look looks like for anything Pennsylvania, Dutch, Amish, whatever, in this other part of societal sensationism. Like, why do we like worship the Santa creature? Oh, there's a very good reason in neat and tidy and home standards and constructing a reality that there are these anchors that cross any religion and anything. They know, they've heard of this Santa man and Santa Claus and Klaus, and this look that the white bearded man has in Andrew Carnegie kind of looks like that in my cross reference if I wouldn't have known that. So thank goodness they did like the Santa thing in New York, at least. I think it caught on in several territories of agreement, societal agreement of celebrating a evergreen and Christmas tree in a known calendar range of holiday. Um, for HHS and NHS. Right. So anyhow, so that's how my morning opened. Then I'm watching this CBS this morning. They have on they have real statistics and data about the changing one face of America. They used Allentown, had something to do with this January 6th thing. The source was the U.S. Census Bureau. They said in 1970s, there was 97% white. And in 2020, there's 31% white. 97% down to 31%. Why is the military so hard to get a hold of and to help out when the population went from 97% white to 31%? And what are the surviving 31% white supposed to do? I'm just curious. They showed real historic occurrences, something about a Holmes and a Theranos with something called Sonny Bahali something or other. These are executives of corporate level who are now been convicted, and their claim to fame is this revolution of genetic and blood testing. At the same time, we are still going through genetic biology warfare, being this pandemic, this epidemic, this coronavirus. There was a BA.2 variant. Now there's a BA.5 variant. And then they actually allowed one representative, believe it or not, from this 31% white survivor population inside this changing face of America to say something. And this man said that it's not all right and that they're not okay with what's going on. So I'm going to put that on. And then I decided to take a look because I'm going off of real facts. I'm going off of what the big board on the televised is trying to paint the future and defend themselves with. I'm looking at what was disseminated and propagated in the local population that has relevance. And then I'm tying in to this my actual life's journey to nowhere in this 31% of shrinking population. And then I'm also thinking of Homeland Security because I've had a problem with sudden onset of weight since I moved back to Bayside. I've also turned this weird shade of yellow, which makes and my lips going white. So there is definitely a health concern about what I'm being exposed to. Not quite sure at what level. You never really know just how out of control singularly you are until you move into a metro area and your health starts to deteriorate. And you one day, because of the things you know, I bought powder, not baby formula, but a powder like baby formula, and it looks very much, they say that it's from a local health food store, and it looks like this. Now, on the label, it says all sorts of things. It says it's plant protein, it says it's fruits and veggies, but I know when I think about it, somewhere in national security, I've been to Home Depot. I know what the mortar and the epoxy that holds down tile looks like and smells like. And it's really hard to discern in this new changing environment of security that's been compromised, um, who's actually holding the license and ability to immediately pull stuff off the shelf, like where I purchased in the local area at GNC, and where I purchased also at Target, and what's going into them in the dehydration process of the water itself, from the water that they're using. Is it a source? Because I had the local, who is not um, one of the original 5 agreed upon immigration allowances. This man in this local store is not one of those allowances. He's not familial whatsoever. And he's telling me that it's all right, go check a doctor. But the doctors look like him, so that's a problem. So now I'm in the city. They're alerting me today that my level of population has gone down from 97% to 31%, which confuses me also, because based on the passport to social studies and the societal reputable data that's been disseminated into the population, there was a man by the name of Andrew Carnegie, John Rockefeller, and the other one was John Pierpont Morgan. I don't know why they don't include Vanderbilt in this. Vanderbilt, though, they did mention somewhere else that he had 1 in every 20 green linens and more money than the U.S. Treasury. So when we were at 97%, we had our own economy. We're like lost civilization work here. We had our own economy. We had our own green linen with the federal government and with the United States of America. So there's real ancestors, real history, real descendants that are still here, but we are in desperate need and in trouble. And I really am seeing a lot of outward signs of aggression from the not us, from elsewhere, pushing in. If I'm not speaking, if and only if I'm not speaking about the entire USA territory, if I'm only focusing on New York and state with the Erie and the 5 that in the social studies were allowed in 5 countries that banished their people to this particular postage stamp or this particular part of the USA territory, and only speaking on that, I'm doing a real close analysis because I'm frightened. I'm drinking this, I'm turning yellow, but I've been turning yellow. And I don't know if it's the water. I don't know if is this the stuff that they bag, that they put on job sites to hold tiles down, that they call epoxy or mortar or grout type, without the particulate in it? I mean, how does one get together a consumer protection group to test these things and to protect themselves and others in the area, since our numbers have gone from 97 to 31%? And that's just what they're saying on the US Census. I'm also looking at some of the sensationalism, some of the ratio being brought out like there's some competition going on. And then they even show some of the real world, they call themselves Hispanics that are here, who are like, yeah, tough luck, we're here. You're going to deal with black and brown people now. No. Our numbers have gone from 97 to 31. Hello, world security at World War III. There is a real thing going on here in the North America, and I don't know if it's being handled properly. I know I don't feel like I'm being handled properly, that's for sure. So I want to go to Westworld for a moment at S4E. I'm sorry. Yeah, S4E2. And a very specific conversation. Then I want to go to the CBS this morning. If I think of it like a cosmic battle station foresee the BS at the moment, to see the battle going on in front of me. Um, with this changing demographics, this historical perspective, this Hispanic perspective, um, and it's E135, which aired today, Friday, 7/8/22. So when I say I wear 22s in my shoes at the moment, this is shoes. I also have two Z's, kind of look like twos, but whatever, that's a different video I did earlier on. All right, and he also, in this one conversation in Westworld, which is S4E2, he mentions he's neurodivergent. That's a new socially acceptable word, I'm assuming, based on the messenger that's bringing me the message at we're a dying civilization here at the moment, and it's not okay, and something needs to be done. All right, here it is. There's some Canadian geese. It's on a golf course.
Chuck. I don't give a fuck how many senators you got dancing to your tune. We can crush you. We all know about the mess you made. You're a fucking psychopath. Damaged goods.
I don't think that language would play very well with your base. I'm what you call neurodivergent. I've had some time to become comfortable with that.
But you can call yourself whatever the fuck you want. But if we leak what we know, I think the press will have some colorful ways to describe what you are.
Yeah, I know a few things about you as well. We knew you were coming, that you couldn't resist, that you would leave most of your security behind. You know what I learned when I was in my spiral? I thought I was wrapped in power. And I realized I was naked, alone, as I've always been. That all my power was illusory. We are all alone.
Now, I don't disagree at the moment. I feel very alone. But going from this piece of journalistic, I mean, again, this is with Academy. This is with the elite wealthy that came to some kind of wanting to get a version out, which I get. But this is less talked about, less known, and is a much smaller community than what tunes in on, like, say, a rabbit ear stations between the 2, 4, 5, 7 are the news networks in New York. So let me go back to what they had on this morning as commercial advertising. This is where the sensationalism of promoting this, I'm already at a 31% from a 97, and they are actively promoting some challenging system. They label it as US is open, and it's this woman that labeled herself Queen Latifah. And she's promoting a US Open. And she's got, like, what I call drug cartel kids, or the farmers' children from elsewhere. And they're not from our garden. They're just not. They're not part of the original 5. The original 5 have land improvements, have federal contracts. They've developed, they've networked, they've built sustainable housing and road work and infrastructure for their own garden. And it has been under attack my entire life, and I don't see anybody coming to my defense. What I see a whole lot of is socially promoting the wrong message and making the world a more dangerous place for me to live, to try to find a mate. And then once I was concubined wrong, more dangerous place for me to try to raise children in this disgusting leftover New York. In some overstock and banished community, they might understand if they can get their head wrapped tight enough in the correct headgear. Now, on CBS this morning at E135, on this date, this is the commercial promotion where it's almost like a subliminal call to action, but it's a visual cue. And there's been this promotion of African history and Latino history, and I'm like, excuse me, you all were not. We have our own economy here, and we have gardening and seedlings that need to be tended to. Why is the only message on the future and on the broadcast networks at the moment all about Africa and South? What is with the South uprising? Who is handling this?
Salad and an individual starter.
They say all the world's a stage, but no stage shines brighter than this one.
Now, that woman goes by the name Queen Latifah. That's her stage name, I guess. I don't know if she was born with it. That's a problem.
Because here the stars outshine the lights.
Ready? Right.
In TikTok, or Tok being Tokyo and the tick being tenants in common, there is a very real problem with this US Open, with this sports, with this promotion that they've got going on, and with this like uber aggressive challenging system, when the numbers already dictate that the origins and the founders are in trouble, and they're just beating a dead horse at this point, is what it feels like. So here's what they display and how they actively promote this kind of behavior, and then like step to what was here and like just deal with it. No.
Action goes way beyond these lines. Here, new names will battle the sport's biggest names. Here, challengers will rise. Unbelievable.
Challengers will rise. Why is this even allowed inside North America? If that's how South America is working, its leadership and governance, why is it infecting the northern continent of North America? And why is nobody rectifying this?
Champions will be crowned, and the spectacular can be found in every moment. US Open champion.
Here's mid-conversation. That champion, like all this stuff that we did not encourage. I didn't say it was okay. I didn't say that I wanted my population to go from 97 to 31%. In fact, I don't know how to get word to the antiquated descendants elsewhere to say we're in trouble and this is what is going on. And I don't know who the parents, the custodian, the foster family, I don't know who to reach out to.
Allentown is an example of the future of America?
100%. Even those states where there's probably no Hispanics at all, no black people, they will be seeing a lot of that in the next few years.
So for someone who hears that sentence and thinks, uh-oh,
Yeah.
even a little bit, you say what?
I don't know. It wouldn't be very nice to say it on TV or whatever. Suck it up. And it's gonna happen. That's it.
No. No, it's not going to happen. It's been happening. But at what time and at what place does somebody stand up and say, excuse me, are there brothers and dads somewhere? Are any of them trained? I mean, I saw a special yesterday that they sent them from the US to Ukraine, which Russia doesn't want. I have trouble in New York. I have a real need. I really am able to voice and put things together. And I have the evidence. I don't understand how this is not even being acknowledged. I mean, it's being acknowledged, but in a very passive-aggressive way. So here's the statistics as they presented them this morning. Under the skies of Capitol riot. For somewhere, they want to know, well, are they, like, what's...
Begins with a single fact. More than 90% of the people arrested for the attack on the Capitol were white. And the key characteristic, according to the researchers, uniting these attackers was not ideology or geography, but in fact race. Quote, they come from counties where the white share of the population is declining fastest. Well, earlier this year, you'll notice my winter coat in these pictures, we visited a place that has already...
Now, this information he's bringing today in 2022, he already recorded it a year ago. So there's already people who are alerted to the fact that are sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. In fact, they're making things worse while other people are dying and being harmed.
Already experienced a sudden demographic change. It's a city in Pennsylvania where white Americans, accustomed to being an overwhelming majority, are quite suddenly not. We arrive in Allentown, Pennsylvania one day last winter, and to us, absolutely nothing seems out of the ordinary. But talk to Ed Frack, and he'll tell you that's because we haven't lived through the changes here.
My mother grew up a couple blocks away, 6th and the Liberty area, and it just... Back then, you could walk around, you could leave your doors unlocked.
As a kid, I mean, Allentown was amazing because we had...
Ed's friend Gary Iacocca also remembers that older Allentown and the nonstop crowds that used to shuffle through the hot dog shop his grandfather opened after coming here from Italy.
I will tell you, the original...
Now, I'm going to say something. He's my kind of Italian. Just is. He's got that, like, northern Italy look, like the mountainous region. The star people is what they used to call us. I've seen other Italians, or what they've tried to portray or push this image that keeps changing and confusing the topic and the issue. But it's just helping fuel the numbers going from 97% down to 31%, and there's no inclination that they have any, like, that they plan on stopping. It's getting worse and worse and more as the ratios flip. It gets dangerously faster.
Original Yakko's was open at 6 a.m. in the morning, and we closed at 1:30 at night, and we were busy all day. Well, this was a blue-collar town. Third shifts, they would get off, they'd come down to Yakko's, they'd get a couple hot dogs, drink a beer, and go home.
And while that family business continues in other locations, the original Yakko's is gone, closed after 82 years.
The problem is the neighborhood began to change. As other little restaurants opened up, Hispanic restaurants, soul food restaurants, Asian restaurants, that became a little more competitive. I remember clearing it out. It was heartbreaking because, I grew up. Sad, very sad.
I'm kind of upset on how some of the stuff has gone.
As for Ed Frack, by the time his mother passed away in 2020 at 90 years old, he says it had been at least a decade since she felt at home.
It was just a different kind of culture. People talked, people said hello, shook your hand, and now it's, a little bit different.
Frack says he often doesn't see the same level of pride or consideration.
That's Allentown.
What's changed is not only the culture or economy, but the people. In the 1970s, Allentown was 97% white. By 2020, though, the white share of the population had plunged to 31%, as Hispanic residents became what the local paper calls a strong majority.
The men, women, and children who come.
And just as it took years for previous waves of immigrants to be accepted into their community,
now, I'm not going with this. They keep trying to push this narrative of, well, you weren't accepted when your people. Wrong. Absolutely not. They gathered together. They tried to work with other white communities. I'm not buying the history that the people who already brought the numbers from 97 to 31% are still trying to push and just get over it. We're here and we're not going anywhere. No, I still have a problem. Okay, now here you have a white woman and some man that she was dating or whatever. I don't know, there's some kind of tie-in. And they're at corporate level inside of somewhere, the federal, whatever. And they're tied, their claim to fame and their tie is that they're genetic testing and blood testing. Okay, but they're two different blood types, first of all, or ancestral. By expressed gene only, I can see the very real difference. And then, of course, there's the sequencing of genetics, and that'll tell a whole nother side of the story, geographically and geospatially. But this is a larger systemic problem at a level that's supposed to be highly classified, not even spoken about. But it is so devastatingly obvious at this level that it's not being handled properly.
A court case, Sunny Balwani, the former president of...
He's not a white guy. You have to look real close, but he's got a very ashy appearance in a very mocha or cocoa powder, mixed in with something, a baby formula down. It's not white. But yet it's trying to get a hold of genetic testing, sequencing, facility, blood testing, blood typing. And then lo and behold, what's the story just 2 sections away from this very real story? It shows this coronavirus, this BA.5 variant, and some new genetic curse, if you will, like they used to say. I mean, do I speak inside out or upside down? Or do I speak human, calling out some of the sensationalism? It gets confusing at my level because I have so much to say and to inquire, but I do not have the right channels in order to access.
President of Theranos and the ex-boyfriend of founder Elizabeth Holmes had...
Now, the company's name is Theranos. Is that have anything to do with Marvel MCU people or whatever with Thanos? And this gigantic, because Thanos is actually the visual acuity and the size of him looks very much what I refer to as Superman in a far, far away MFA kind of a way. Less the gigantic chin or the mispronounced Chin. But again, they've also referenced him as Hellboy. And not the real guy, because once he has all the makeup off, he looks nothing the same. But in this Thanos whatever, the way that they do the makeup, it has a very chiseled jaw. So now that gets confusing between the real, the surreal, and the Jupiter that I'm trapped on that they call Earth. With the ear things.
Been found guilty on a dozen counts of fraud, charges tied to defrauding investors in that company, which had promised to revolutionize blood testing. His lawyers had blamed Holmes for the crimes, while lawyers for Holmes had blamed Balwani. In the end, the juries found them both guilty. And finally,
some people say on this planet that they're looking for Nazis. They're going to root them out. They're the terrible ones. And I'm like, yeah, Nazis? Right. I don't know. Nazis is the word for nose. You mean the nosy? What kind of nosy? Because sometimes it's the ear things. It's not the nosy.
Finally, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is escalating his feud.
So now this time that this Sunny Balwani guy and this Elizabeth Holmes chick and their relationship in some corporate whatever enterprise with very key labels of everything wrong in the world, mixing blood and genetic sequencing and the study thereof. And now all of a sudden, what do we have during this coronavirus, this pandemic, and this particular part of the universe, the galaxy, the megaverse, and real world? With the surreal doing I have no idea on a daily basis.
Attention now to the pandemic. The Omicron variant of the coronavirus is not going away. The BA.5 subvariant, now circulating in the U.S., may be the most contagious yet. It accounts for more than half of the cases.
Let me tell you something. The person right here, looking for answers but been kept out the entire time, held captive while the population is decreasing from 97% to 31%, has no idea what BA.5 actually means. Does not know what pharmaceutical company, what sponsor, what country, what countrymen, what countrywomen, what contraband. Let's go contraband for Freedmen Bureau. And somebody's got the same picture book I do. What's up with the contraband? Why is it nestling in and breaking apart from the big five, from 97 down to 31? And where are these armed forces that take care of problems, women, children, they protect and they serve, and they swear their allegiance? What happened to that, dream? I know that I heard that they existed somewhere.
With infections surging across all age groups. Dr. Celine Gounder is editor-at-large for KFF's Kaiser.
Oh my gosh, and lo and behold, another member of it's not part of the big five. But it's actively participating. It's being received in New York as if it's an authority. You know what it's an authority on? It's an authority on breaking up 97% of safety and gardening with a protected people, class, land, economy, and civilization. And it's part of bringing the 97% ratio of protected and secured down to 31%. Yes, they are so successful. So when is the army going to stand in and remove all of their really successful attempts at endangering and eradicating and genociding a population that had no chance of self-defense?
Kaiser Health News and an infectious disease specialist. Good morning to you. What do we know as far as the severity of illness, the seriousness of the BA.5 that seems to be more contagious?
There are early hints that the BA.5 subvariant of Omicron may be more virulent. So in other words, may cause more severe disease. It's a little early to say. This is based on animal data. But at the same time, if this is spreading widely, if we're seeing a lot of people infected, even a small percentage of many people means a lot of people in the hospital.
Yeah,
So they are given these research facilities this time, this allowance by I don't know whom, to develop these things. Then they let them out in the public. How does one defend oneself and one's children in this situation? Now here's Eyewitness News at noon. What does it look like to me? It looks like a president who is surrounded by the people who have been killing off his ancestors for several decades, and him trying to do his job best he can. But it looks like two drug cartel, like the machete kinds in a Sicaro in South America. Looks like they learned English. They got dressed in suits and they're right behind him. It's really frightening. And listen to his message.
Extreme decision overturning Roe. I want to comment on one piece of good news, economic good news today. Today, the Labor Department reported that we've added 372,000 jobs.
Last I checked, in the picture book that New York City put together as a construct, I don't know if it's deemed a prospectus, a document, a historically accurate reference, a social studies manual, or, I mean, it says student workbook. It has statistical data in it of agreed upon, the investors, the banishers, what the banishing countries look like before they were banished here. So that's important. But I will tell you that the man in the center looks like one of the big five. The people right behind him, on either side of him, look like a terrorist plot in a movie. Like, I don't know, like, I don't really watch those movies. So is that where that James Can, but with two N's, reference comes from? Is that where Al Pacino, I don't know, there's something with The Godfather. I never saw that either. But here, that's not part of the Great Migration. This, also not part of the Great Migration. What they do look like they're a part of, though, is this Thanos, or this Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani problem going on, and blood poisoning in like real time.
Last month, 372,000. Here's why it's important. Our private sector has now recovered all of the jobs lost during the pandemic and added jobs on top of that. We have more Americans working today in the private sector than any day under my predecessor.
I don't believe him, but he said something about private sector. Now, this is interesting because in that guidance office, when I was signing up for the last high school, the one where Vinnie Colora was there, he sat behind me, and he looks very much like the rebuilt church of St. Nicholas in Manhattan, the one that went unspoken of when the towers fell. So now, let's see. It's just very, very interesting. When I signed up there was some question of public or private sector. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then it was like, well, you have to call the presidential office. Well, do you have a phone number? The woman didn't have a phone number. She said, well, yeah, I got to ask your dad. I'm like, what does my dad have to do with this? My dad doesn't have the president's phone number. And so she was like, it was this really confusing conversation. She's like, well, I need an answer right now. And I'm like, I don't even know the questions you're asking. How do I answer like, what the hell did I just want? I wanted to register for high school because I got thrown into this situation. Trust me, I don't like this area, or I don't want to be here. I hate it here. I liked where I was.
More today than any time in American history. Today. In the second quarter of this year, we created more jobs than any quarter under any of my predecessors in nearly 40 years before the pandemic. Think about that. At a time when our critics said the economy was too weak, or having already added more jobs we had already added more jobs my first year as president of any president in history, we still added more jobs in the past 3 months than any administration in nearly 40 years. Now look, I know times are tough. Prices are too high. Families are
Okay, so the man is not, in a movie situation, if the president had a permanent marker and a book and it wrote and it looked like, and he was holding a sign that said, help. Does that ring a bell better? Because it's a little confusing where, like, he's saying a message, he's reading off a teleprompter, but, like, I've seen the movies. I've seen the real elite from elsewhere that then gets together and says, no, there's some part of the Americas that need to know what we do for a living. Like, in real world. So then they put, like, Sakara together. Movies I don't watch, but, I watch them like this. Like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Oh my God. Like, because I'm not one of them. So it's just like, okay, all right, I got enough. So that's what this looks like to me in a very, like, specific way. And it looked very much like that when the first break-in to presidency happened, back when nobody was talking about it and still aren't talking about it, with another, like, he who should not be named kind of a way. We'll call him Voldemort at the moment.
You see the cost of living crunch. But today's economic news confirms the fact that my economic plan is moving this country in a better direction. The unemployment rate is near a historic low of 3.6%.
And again, it doesn't matter what he says because it's not real. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 113610. And here, let's go with, what did the only part of this that matters is it says Washington in New York. There was something in here really, really important for ancestral namesakes. There's Thomas Jefferson. I have a 4-letter word for Thomas Jefferson in America. And then there's this Alexander Hamilton look to the face of the Federalist Party. And then there's this actual name for the leader of the Democratic and Republican Party, which is also important because both of them had this skin tone. It's not the skin tone of what's frightening and what's been moving into this territory. And I don't see it spoken of anywhere at the level for which, but now today they came out with numbers. When I took notes at 1.03.03, the changing face of America, Allentown, 1970s. So these are the real, I wrote down, I was like, here's real statistics and data. Here's real newcomer threat and integration of more problems, exacerbating a situation. Here's real historical occurrences. And here's real white populations feeling and expressing themselves that it's not okay. Because it's not the popular, what's being spoken of, but it does exist. And there is this other sensationalism that's trying to silence and out-elect those that are not all right with it. This morning at 2.41, he said, Tony Nicole references City in Flux, F-L-U-X. Flux, last time I checked, was some kind of sealant that they put on a copper pipe before they solder it at steam fitters or plumbers for unions inside New York. Yeah, I've been on a job site, several of them before. In real people. Then they mentioned something called, they pronounce it as Yaka, but it looks like Yoko's. And then they reference Allentown, changing face of America, and then doggy pack, which again, I don't really know real world what that means. I just know that they mentioned it and it's extremely important. They also gave visual clues at 7.50. If I don't listen to the audio at 5:0, the visual cues said expected executive actions, direct HHS to protect access to medication abortions and ensure emergency care. If I need special testing of medical products being food source from the FDA, how do I send word that you can pull the 2 stores off of Lewis's credit card transactionally wise, and the UPCs should be in there and the local foot traffic in order to source where they came from, and if there's actual toxic substance in this powder, like something they might sell in Home Depot, that would deeply frighten me so I can stop turning yellow. To ensure emergency care. Then the second mention was of direct agencies to educate medical providers and insurers about requirements to sharing privileged patient information with the authorities. I have a very special star date. I share with a very special Brady a very special star date in whatever cosmic and cosmetic alignment we were developed into this solar system. I have a different, very special relation to a different 8-3 who has an 8-11. Who has a sub-level B83 elevator ride into like a real whatever construct with Westworld. And then there is this third mention of ask FTC to take steps to protect privacy of those seeking reproductive care online. You too. You too, or YouTube? Again, I'm all alone here, but I mean, do I really need to go get the Union Jack again? I mean, it's all over the rest of my stuff, but here we are. Hang on. And here's the other really good question. This has Susan B. Anthony. And I don't know. They said Susan B. Anthony. They said Betty Ross. It gets confusing. If I go to this manual, there's a bunch of different alternative flags for different operational purposes, I suppose. But my son's name is Anthony for this Susan B. Anthony tie-in and whatever at this point. But the big five, they have their own patterns because they each have whatever they have in their big importantness elsewhere. But there's definitely five of them with their own rectangles. And then I'm speaking on behalf of the rectangle here that I was, or surviving within at the moment for a larger area, whatever, in however, how do you ask, like a foster parent or a cosmic parent or star brother or star father or however that works. And I have a star. It's 1978. And then I share a star with a very special, I don't know, do I use the word megastar? Like, just because it's what they put up and what they brought to the forefront as the two Leos in my life frame in the same age range of importance. And then I brought to the table a third, my son, Alexander. And he shares a very special numerical arrangement with the first two stars. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. And on a divergent conversation, like neurodivergent from whatever is on one side of the thing, but I see that they're showing divergence in a circle and then in a different pattern, which on several levels of the elevator ride, I sit and I ponder how it could be interpreted and for what purpose if it needed to be spoken on. But I've been putting thought into it. It's July 8th, so it's 7/8, and it's 2022.